he said. "Hurry up." He took a deep breath, smiled at his friend, and strode forward, opening the tent flap with both hands. He was immediately surprised by how dark it was inside. The tent was made of deep purple cloth, a garish color for a non-noble, but even so he'd expected it to let more light in. Most traders kept their stalls neat and sunny, to better display their goods. This tent seemed designed to create a gloomy atmosphere. As his eyes adjusted, Zed discovered he was surrounded by the strangest and most fantastic wares he'd ever seen in a shop, made all the more unnerving in the shadows. There was a basket filled with watches and clocks, all broken. Working timepieces were so rare that only nobles could afford them. He saw some that were made of metal and wood, though a few particularly bewildering examples appeared to be set into carved bones. Bowls of incense smoldered in every corner. Their burning leaves and powders filled the top of the tent with a cloud of rotten, sweet smoke. The skeletons of small creatures lined the canopies. Most were of animals that Zed had never seen before. But what truly filled the space were the charms. Everywhere Zed looked, tiny wooden tokens hung from bits of strand, dangling from hooks along the walls and lying in knots on the tables. Most were suspended from the roof of the tent, hanging from the lavender clouds, just within reach of an outstretched hand. Zed was reminded of spiders that used filaments of sticky thread to ensnare their prey, yanking their unfortunate meals into hidden burrows. The charms were all wooden, carved into small icons. Many were animals, though a few more abstract examples stood out among the bunch. A hook, a grinning skull, a hand with an eye in its palm. The charm seller herself sat in the center of the space, behind a narrow divining table. Before today, Zed had only ever seen the woman in glimpses. As a younger boy, he and his friends had once spent an entire evening staking out her tent from a distance, hoping to get a better look at old Mikiva when she retired from the market. One by one, Zed's friends had been called home that night, until only he and Brock remained. But as the lamps in the stalls were all snuffed out and the square fell into a yawning gloom, they too had finally given up their watch. For all Zed knew, the mystic had never emerged from her tent. She was younger than Zed had expected of a woman everyone called Old Mikiva. Her dark brown skin was smooth and pretty. Hundreds of years ago, Freestone had been a central trade city, filled with pilgrims, merchants, and dignitaries from all over the world. Such journeys were impossible now, but the city retained its diversity. No two of Zed's friends seemed to share the exact same heritage. They were a patchwork quilt of colors and patterns. His own fawn-colored skin and small features looked quite different from Brock's pale face and broad smile. But Zed's background was still more complicated than most. The charm seller lifted her eyes and watched him in silence for a long moment. Zed opened his mouth to say something, but found his earlier gumption had abandoned him, along with his voice. He was about to retreat, fling the tent's flap aside and run, when the woman's eyes flicked to the wooden stool sitting opposite her. "You're the first this morning," she said in a warm, not at all frightening voice. "Good for you. Diligence is a kind of charm, all its own." Zed swallowed, but the lump remained in his throat. He approached the table and slowly took a seat. As he did, he noticed that old Mikiva was in the process of carving a new charm from a piece of wood. The knife she used was curved and graceful-looking, the metal gleaming green in the darkness somehow. "You're here for a guild-culling charm," she said. It wasn't a question, but Zed nodded anyway. "I haven't seen an elf-blooded child in the culling in many years." Zed felt his ears prickle at that, a sure signal that they were turning bright red. He'd been raised by his mother since birth, and having inherited the majority of her features, he looked essentially human, but his high-peaked ears gave him away as elf-blooded, the only elf-blooded person in Freestone as far as he knew. Most of the other kids had given up making fun of his ears years ago, though Zed still recognized the surprised look of an adult, noticing them for the first time. "So tell me, elf-blooded child," Mikiva continued, "which guild are you hoping for?" "My mom's in the Servants' Guild," Zed croaked. He cleared his throat. "She takes pride in her work, but says my best chance for a comfortable life is a skilled craft. She's put every bit of coin she could spare into teaching me to read and write." The woman nodded.